Welcome back, everyone. It's been 2 months since the deadly school shooting in Newtown, Connecticut. The school district there recently voted to put armed guards in elementary schools. That measure is now awaiting final budgetary approval. Newtown isn't the only school district that's considering such a measure. The head of the National Rifle Association, Wayne LaPierre, has said we should do this nationwide and look at Israel as a model, saying, quote, Israel had a whole lot of school shootings until they did one thing. They said we're going to stop it, and they put armed security at every school, and they have not had a problem since then. Well, that's not exactly true. Israel did not have a whole lot of school shootings and suddenly decide to put armed guards at schools. But they do have armed guards in schools now, and they don't have a problem with school shootings. I recently was in Israel, and since we've been talking so much about this, I wanted to see what these armed guards look like and show this to you as well. In fact, I met a family whose children have gone to school both in the United States and Israel, and here's their story.
We moved to Israel 5 months ago, and I was in shock.
Really?
I was in shock. You know, I got here and I saw the guard here. You know, the guard is carrying a weapon.
So because you've had your kids in public school in Los Angeles, you've seen the difference between school security in America and school security here. How would you describe the difference?
The difference is, you know, in U.S., you know, one of the staff sitting in the front, checking the ID, and that's it. And it wasn't locked. The gate wasn't locked. So I think that everyone can get in. You know, it's like easy. And look at him right here. He locked the door. He locked the gate. It's different.
So as a mother, do you feel safer sending your child to Israel?
I feel safer in Israel.
How do your kids feel going to school here?
They feel so safe here. So safe. I was surprised when I got here. You know, it's like, oh wow, this is a safe place.
But some people might look at the fence and the guard and feel intimidated. You know, feel like it, you know, sometimes people see a fence like this and say, oh, it looks like a prison. It doesn't look like a school, and that's not where I want my children to go to school.
It's better to feel safe.
How safe do you feel in school here versus how you felt in Los Angeles?
Here I feel a lot safer because I know that there's 2 guards, one on each side of the, like one on that side of the gate and the other one in the back. And I know that I can count on him, like, to keep me safe, and like he won't let anybody bad in, or nothing bad will happen.
Why do you feel that way?
Because he has a gun, and he checks everybody before they come in, and he knows.
Some people feel, though, that having an armed guard in school can make students feel more nervous, especially when you're not used to them. Do you ever feel nervous around the guard because he has a gun?
No, not at all. When you come into school and you see that there's a person that cares about you and that doesn't want anybody to get hurt, and then you feel a lot safer.
Now, that's just one family's perspective. I spoke to a few families, and they told me the same thing. Israel put armed guards in schools in 1995, not as a response to school shootings, but to protect against terrorism. And since armed guards went into schools in Israel, Israel police tell us there have been 0 public school shootings. That said, Israel is very strict about gun laws. There is no Second Amendment. You are not allowed to own a weapon unless you fit a very specific criteria. So why does a country that has such strict gun laws allow children to be around guns at school? I asked one of the country's top safety officials about this. Take a listen.
In Israel, it's almost the opposite, because we don't, not only that we don't have the Second Amendment and the basic right of having a weapon. In fact, in the Israeli law, it's quite the opposite. Having or holding a firearm, first of all, to begin with, it's forbidden. It's okay only for very specific population.
He went on to say that really the armed guards are just part of school security. He said that even as a father, it was good to know that there was an instant response if needed at the school, but it was part of a bigger plan as well. Should we have armed guards in U.S. schools, seeing what Israel's done, is that a model for us? Joining us now, Ann Hayes, president of Investigative Management Group that advises schools on security. She's also a former special agent with the Department of Justice in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And Randi Weingarten is the president of the American Federation of Teachers. Welcome to you both. This is a hot topic of conversation. We want to keep our kids safe. And Ann, you say, you know, that armed guards are something we should consider in public schools. Why?
Yes, I don't think that we have to make our schools appear like armed camps, but I do think that someone armed in the school would be very beneficiary, both on a reactionary level as well as prevention. We've almost made our schools soft targets for either gunmen or terrorists because they know that there is no one there that has a gun that can stop them. And the only way to stop someone with a gun that comes in to do damage is with a gun. Can't do it with scissors.
Randi, you've worked really closely with teachers. You've been very frank about saying that teachers should not be armed. But, but what about armed guards?
And, you know, I'm glad that, you know, you also showed that in Israel there is really strict gun laws. 40% of the people who apply for firearms don't get them, and teachers are not armed in Israel. I think this is a community by community decision. I mean, we have in our schools right now, a third of our schools actually have armed police officers. And there are places like Newtown and others who want them because of deterrent value and prevention value. But there's a lot of other things that we need to do as well. And I think that this should be a community by community decision. What I'm concerned about is that we don't make schools into armed fortresses.
What did you think about what you saw? I'm just curious about what you saw in Israel. They had that high fence. They have a gate that's locked. They have the armed security guard. And when I actually talked to a cab driver in Israel and I said, well, sometimes our schools don't actually have fences, they looked at me like I was crazy. Like these were some basic things. Should we be considering some of these minor changes?
Absolutely. We should have school safety audits for every school, and we should have those kind of protocols, like a panic bar, the kind of locked procedures. Having some fences around schools are really important because particularly schools in rural areas. So I think that we have to have that kind of safety protocol. But the bottom line is also, in a situation of limited resources, there will be some schools that say, let's get a social worker, let's have a guidance counselor, let's find a way to really connect with kids. It's a different situation than Israel. I've been in Israeli schools. I agree with you that they're very, very, very safe. But I think what you heard the security people in Israel say is that it is a whole protocol based upon what's happening in Israel. You know, that's what we should do here.
It's interesting that you bring that up, and Anna, I'd like your thoughts on this as well. In Israel, in the conversation about gun control and school security, it is very clear that they are two different topics.
Yes.
So when we talk about school security, we're not talking about gun control. No. And in this conversation we're having as a nation, we're talking about comprehensive reform.
Yes.
But I wonder if we are hurting our children by talking about comprehensive reform and gun control as a big picture and not focusing on how do I keep a 5-year-old from getting murdered in their classroom. Are we hurting ourselves by taking that comprehensive approach?
Let me follow up on something Randi said about having counselors. I too think that that's a very important point. The first perimeter for security is intelligence. And many of these schools have intelligence of either former students, maybe spouses of teachers, people that have mental problems that maybe have made threats. And that is something that we need to focus on also. That would help a lot in securing the schools. But I think I have two boys, and they would make a gun out of a peanut butter sandwich. So to punish 5-year-olds for playing cowboys and Indians in the playground is not. They don't understand that.
And that's a little bit of a separate topic, Randi. I'd love your thoughts on this as well, because again, the gun debate's getting so big. But how do we make sure it's the children are safe and the teachers are safe, and the gun control debate maybe is a separate one? Maybe.
Well, I think there's 3 things that are going on. Look, Newtown shocked the conscience of our nation. And I think that as a result, there is a renewed conversation not on whether or not we should have the Second Amendment. We have to find ways to harmonize the Second Amendment and legitimate efforts to reduce gun violence. But we have had over 1,000 people killed since Newtown because of gun violence. So I think you have three things going on. One is a focus on school safety. Second is a focus on gun violence. And third is a focus on mental health, because we also have to destigmatize mental health issues in order to ensure that if we see kids who are really, who
Sure.
are lost and things like that, we
They need
have
to be
to find a
identified.
way to deal with them.
Randy, if I
Right.
could, and to